Have you lost weight only to gain it right back after returning to your routine? Did your diet work for someone else but not you? Rockin' That ID Life helps you understand your genetic makeup to find a lifestyle that fits your needs. Together, you and RockinThatIDLife.com can focus on your health and meet your goals today. That's RockinThatIDLife.com.
Center Ice Brewery is a proud sponsor of Let's Go Blues Radio. Visit CenterIceBrewery.com today to schedule a no-contact curbside pickup or make a reservation in their awesome tap room. That's Center Ice Brewery, located in Midtown St. Louis. Let's go Blues! Welcome to Season 10, Episode 21 of Let's Go Blues Radio. We're the often imitated, never duplicated, truth-telling, anti-book banning podcast. We're the original St. Louis Blues hockey podcast. It's topical in the news nowadays.
And we are asking that Spotify remove us.
Right.
We are not. Please keep us. Spotify.
Get us off of Joe Rogan's podcast. As long as Joe Rogan's there, get us off Spotify. Nope.
No, we're kidding. Please don't.
Please don't.
I think if you say his name 2 more times, we're gonna get the universal COVID information disclosure that they put on all their podcasts.
I thought you were going to say he was like Beetlejuice and he was just going to appear on the show.
That might be too.
Special thanks to RockinThatIDLife.com and CenterIceBrewery.com for proudly sponsoring the shoe. Please check them out. It's Tuesday, February 1st. Happy February, everybody. We're broadcasting live on YouTube and Facebook. This is franchise episode number 339 all time. To interact with the show, we're on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Just do a search for the show and you will find us. I'm Kurt Price, and my co-hosts tonight for the big show are Jeff Ponder and Bill Day. And on the agenda tonight, we do have a special guest, Goalie Guru Kevin Woodley, who covers the Vancouver Canucks for NHL.com and also contributes to InGoal Magazine. We'll talk to him about the Husso and Bennington brouhaha news in St. Louis, how they're playing, and hopefully set the record straight on all this goaltending controversy that some say this team has. We'll also get into the impressive rematch against Calgary Flames, as well as the disappointing showing versus the shorthanded Winnipeg Jets. We'll talk about the Avalanche and their 19-game home winning streak that they may be having tonight, tied with Arizona right now, midway through, 1-1. And the NHL skills competitions on Friday, NHL weekends coming up, all that and more on this edition of Let's Go Blues Radio. Hello, fellas. How are you doing this evening? The snowy or icy, sleety, raining.
It's not icy yet. For you guys.
Right now, it's just rain.
It's cold rain.
It's just wet. Yeah,
cold rain.
It's wet and not ice, just like how St. Peter's Recplex ice is.
Is that right?
Just wet, not actual ice.
Yeah. So it's a pool.
It's like skating on a lake.
It's a wading pool. It's a puddle. It's a big puddle.
That's right, pretty much. No, it's everything's fine with us over here. Just watched the Predators beat the Canucks. Our guest is going to be coming on here soon. He covers the Canucks for NHL.com, so I'm sure he's disappointed by that loss. He's probably getting ready to write something up about it, but
we're disappointed in that loss.
We wanted to see Nashville lose.
God, fucking Predators.
They just keep on hanging on like Kim Wilde, baby.
How
many times do you think there's been a Kim Wilde reference on a blues podcast?
I don't. I'm going to say never. Ever.
Once.
Yeah, including this one?
And it just happened.
There you go. I'll try to work it in later, too.
The official beers of episode number 339. You can follow each of us on the Untapped app. My handle is at cprice12. Jeff's is jponder94. And Bill's is Billy Blue Note 33. So, Jeff, you are up.
I am, as I pour the last bit from the can into my glass. Tonight I'm drinking a Kurt Price favorite, one of my favorites as well, peanut butter chocolate milk stout, Absence of Light, from our friends over at Four Hands Brewery. And the only thing, I like the can a lot, the can art. My only issue is that it reminds me of the shit monster.
Don't say that. I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, from what's that movie?
Dogma.
Dogma. Yeah, one of my favorite movies. I couldn't remember the title. Yeah, that's my only issue with it. Other than that, it's a great can art.
That is an apt comparison.
Mm-hmm. But it does not taste like that. This is a very fine tasting beer, dark, and it tastes like I'm eating a peanut butter cup. It's great.
Bill,
what was it? Was it called Ganthan? Something like that? Was that the name of the monster?
It's like
what it was called.
Isn't it like the shit version of Pizza the Hut, more or less? It's just
pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. So my beer of the show, since we're talking about can art, it's very apropos. I love this can art, and I love this beer. So I am going with.
I was wondering if you were going to go with that
the 13th.
Friday the 13th. I was wondering if you were going to go with that last week or this week, because I saw that you got that last week. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've had it in the beer fridge, and been waiting. The one thing I will say is this is the first time I've seen a non-Mick Ultra in a slim 12-ounce can. I thought when I picked it up they were 16-ounce cans, but hey, it's great. Great beer. Rye, like a rye instead of a barley wine.
Yep.
Wine and rye whiskey barrels.
Okay.
Wait,
you cut out there for a second, though.
You lost me.
You're good.
Just for a second.
Yeah, we did.
Just for a second.
We're good.
All right.
I'm checking my connection.
All right.
So being 5 minutes apart, I'm like, when we lose Bill, I get scared because maybe we have the same network, so the same provider. Yeah. So I get scared. Mine for tonight is one I've had before, the O'Fallon Naughty Pretzel beer from O'Fallon Brewery in O'Fallon, Missouri. Quite good. Like I said before, I'm a big fan of the pretzel beers. I like them. And Naughty Beer is a good one.
That's one that you go to the grocery store and you can't not see that one.
Yeah.
For one, it just kind of stands out with the color scheme of the 6-pack pack.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's one of those that it's very popular right now, and it's a great beer. So if you haven't had it, definitely try it.
Yeah, and who doesn't like? I mean, are there any people that do not like a really good soft pretzel? I mean,
I don't want to meet that person.
I mean, most people probably do, right? Either salt or no salt.
Weirdos,
okay? Some don't like salt.
Weirdos and jerks. I think
yes.
Weirdos and people that are wrong.
I think that needs to be the first question to our guest today. Mm-hmm. Do you like good soft pretzel?
And if not, are you a weirdo or a jerk?
That should be a question.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and for the YouTube listeners in the live chat. Who's got the best soft pretzel?
There's some good ones.
There's some. I mean, you go ballpark pretzel. You can go Auntie Anne's pretzel. You can go
Wetzel's pretzels.
Gus's. Wetzel's. Yeah,
Wetzel's pretzels are pretty good.
Yeah, Gus's. Super pretzel.
So we've got a couple. Let's see. A couple people who commented on. Well, one guy commented on the beers in honor of the late Meatloaf. My beer tonight is Bat Out of Hell from Native Dog, and that's our friend Matt Harris down in Arkansas. One of my favorite comments. One of my favorite comments already, because I'm twisting it. Jason Miller, our friend, Crappy Goalie, says the Crappy Goalie is here to learn from a real goalie. He's talking about you, Bill. Yeah, he's talking about Bill.
Right. So we went through this exercise the other day to figure out how long was it that I actually played in a competitive ice hockey league as a goalie. And even I was surprised to realize that it was 20 years ago. It was in 2002. Wow. It was the last time I played in a competitive ice hockey league. So, yeah. But hey, I am super excited to have Kevin on tonight. I am a very recent subscriber to InGoal Magazine Premium.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm the bug's biting at me. The itch is definitely there.
You've been saying that for a couple weeks.
Right. I am
longer than
seriously,
that.
Yeah. It's serious at this point. Like this
your
weekend,
ass some pads.
He's not messing around anymore.
Go get some pads. And you can come join my team anytime and just take some warm-up shots. We'd love to have a backup goalie sit on the bench.
Yeah. It starts. Everything has to get replaced, so it starts this weekend with skates. My goal this weekend, assuming that Missouri still has enough plow drivers to clear the roads over on that side of the river, for me to get to a hockey shop, I am gonna buy some skates. So
you want to know something? This is just a quick little thing about, you mentioned snow plows in Missouri. When I lived in Texas in 2013, do you know how many snow plows they had in the entire state?
2, and one of them was on a riding mower that somebody had an attachment in the front, right?
One official, yes, one official one, and it was in Houston. It was in Houston. So if Dallas needed it, which was way more north, they had to drive it up from Houston up to Dallas. It seems crazy.
It seems like a waste of money for places to have a snowplow. They'd sit for 15 years and probably out of commission by the time they need it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah. Texas is a whole other country down there, folks.
It's like a whole other state.
Right.
Yeah. It really is.
Our special guest this evening is in studio with us right now, Kevin Woodley, who we mentioned earlier, who covers the Canucks for NHL.com after 10 years with AP, USA Today, and Hockey News. He's still stopping pucks for fun and picking NHL goalie brains for InGoal Magazine, according to his Twitter profile. So I'm just reading directly from that. Kevin, welcome to the show, sir.
My pleasure. So hold on. How long has it been since you've been in goal, Bill?
In a competitive ice hockey league, 20 years. It's crazy. So we've played a lot of roller hockey. Yeah, we played a lot of roller hockey. A lot easier in the St. Louis area to get roller time than ice time. But yeah, it's 20 years.
Okay, so new skates. Just be careful you don't end up needing a new groin after a week. So lots of stretching after that long an absence.
Yeah, especially with all of the new, basically, to me, it looks like it's all player skates, just with heavier, shielding on the outside now, for the most part. The last time I bought a pair of goalie skates, they were, the low profile, solid cowl around it, and weighed about 20 pounds.
Yeah, the cowling is gone. We decided that was useless once goaltenders stopped making actual skate saves and started using their pads as nature intended. And so goalies started removing the cowling and actually Henrik Lundqvist was one of the first guys to, even when he had a cowling on his skate, he would have his trainer cut the inside edge of the cowling off because, of course, as you're trying to hold, like a low, wide stance, the cowling was the first thing that would hit the ice and sort of cause you to slip out. And so if we remove the cowling, it allows us to hold our edges from a wider stance. It allows us to grab an edge for a butterfly recovery from a lower, wider stance. And goalies figured it out pretty quick by just sort of tinkering and cutting off that old piece of useless white plastic. And soon enough, as you said, you can't go into a store now and find the cowling. It's all cowlingless skates. They don't look like goalie skates anymore. So the position is evolving constantly, and that's why I love it so much. There's always something new to talk about.
Yeah, it's entirely different. Every piece of equipment that is available now is entirely different from the last time I seriously shopped for it, and it's amazing.
Bill, I like to imagine that the last time that, and I know this is not correct, but the last time that you were in goal on ice, you didn't wear a helmet. You had the old Cooper pads, right? I mean, that's what I like to picture.
Was it the horsehair? Or was it the pads that just soaked up all the water?
Yeah.
Yep.
Leather.
Yeah, it was very before they started using before Brian Heaton started using styrofoam and deer hair. Right, that was the big advancement in my younger days, going from the leather water soakers to that. So my last pair of pads for reference, were Helite 2s.
So it's funny, our first ever InGoal radio podcast was two people. Our first two guests were Roberto Luongo, driving in the car with me in Vancouver. Turned a few heads that day as we pulled up at stop signs and people looked over, and there's Roberto with a microphone in his hand. The other guest was Sonia DiBiase, who from Reebok and CCM, who actually worked with Brian Heaton, and she told us stories about how they used to go to automotive shows. And that's where sort of the birth of the new materials, like they would go and look at the type of materials that automotive manufacturers were using to make car seats and the new foam. So instead of stuffing pads, the concept of, hey, we can make it out of blocks of foam and cut weight and get rid of all that sort of moisture absorption. She was a big part of that, along with Brian Heaton. So that's funny. Small world. I'm glad we've got Bill here to talk about, how long it's been since he played and how old he is, because I didn't know you guys were going to have my Twitter handle picture up there, which feels like it's 15 years old. I would have tried to shave the gray beard so people wouldn't know just how false advertising that thing is. But I'm glad we've got Bill to make the rest of us feel younger today.
Well, when you joined, I thought for a second that okay, this is Kevin's
My dad was on.
When's Kevin's going to join?
Yeah. Kevin Woodley Sr. is on.
I'm kidding. I'm joking.
This
So
is what
the oldest guy on the show.
So we've ragged on Bill enough. I want to rag one more thing. Not really rag, but on Kurt. Everyone on this panel except Kurt has won a game in goal, correct? Because I have won one game in goal.
Would you play one game in goal?
I've played 2 games in goal. First one I got lit up like 13-2. The second one, my team allowed, I think it was 14 shots. I gave up 7 goals, but we won 8-7. So,
well, see,
I am officially a winning goaltender, the way I see it.
Well, I was
very Grant Sear stat line of you.
See,
yes, I was.
I'm a forward, so yeah, I never, aside from jumping in practice or something for a few minutes. No, I was not a goalie. My claim to fame is scoring a couple goals against Purdue in college. That was, and beating them in overtime. So that was. That's me. So I'm not goaltending isn't my thing. You got to have a screw loose to be a goalie in my mind. So
right,
I agree.
And you had a goalie in the family.
Defenseman.
So
yeah. My brother was a goalie. My cousin was a goalie. Bill's a goalie. We were goalie rich in my childhood. So
yeah, I'm a defense, and we just literally had a goalie get hurt in the first game, and we said we had a doubleheader, and I said we're not forfeiting, guys. I'll put on the pads. So they stopped the game. Let me put the pads on, and like I said, first game we got destroyed. Second game we ended up winning. So, like I said, I retired after that. I said I'm never playing goal again because I have officially I'm 1-1. I'll take that.
I'd jump in there and I'd get lit up, just to not forfeit. But I wouldn't be any good, obviously. But I wouldn't say no if I had to play.
The first shot on me, I made a spectacular Patrick Waugh Statue of Liberty type snap, and I'm like, oh yeah, and I like rubbed it in the other team's face, and then I gave up 5 straight goals. So yeah,
it's very Patrick Waugh versus the Red Wings, like, huh?
Yes, very much
showing off.
So let's actually get into why we brought in our guest here, Kevin. First of all, thank you very much for joining us. For those of you on the video, you are seeing a treat. Quite the goalie display you got behind us there. You wanna talk about what's behind you there?
Yeah, no, this is I'd love to say that this is like, I wanted to have the good Zoom backdrop and have a good office. The truth is, when we moved into our new house, this is probably 3 years ago now, I got my first sort of designated office space at home. And it was made pretty clear to me, despite the fact that the basement is kind of a bit of I got 2 daughters, so you can't really have a quote unquote man cave, but there's a pool table, there's a big TV, but none of my memorabilia, none of my sort of mementos from covering hockey were allowed. So they're all stuffed in here. If I were to do a 360 of the room, there's a lot more of it. And so, but those are the sort of, the last 3 NHL Olympic gold medal winning goaltenders, and guys that, especially Kerry and Roberto, I've had the opportunity to be on the ice with and do some work with and, build a relationship with. So yeah, it just makes for a nice background, and they're personalized. And so they're something special, and they mean something special to me. I didn't think we were entering, when I built this room, a world where Zoom backgrounds would matter as much as they have in the last couple of years, but it worked out okay. And then the Dryden is actually a painting that my daughter did for me as a Christmas present. I just haven't had a chance to hang it yet.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's from your daughter?
That is awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, she got all the talent. None of it from me.
So we mostly brought you on because we want to talk Blues goaltending. But before we get into that, and we'll give you time afterwards to tell people how they can follow what you write, read what you write, everything. But I want to go ahead and start off the top. NHL.com, you write for them, you do some Canucks work for them. But what I'm impressed by, and as Bill had mentioned already, InGoal Magazine. It's a subscription-based, it's online, not print anymore, correct?
Yeah, InGoalMag.com, just the way the world works. Printing is a recipe to, lose not just money, but your house. So we went online. It also makes it a lot easier. We do a lot of video work. We have we do video reviews with NHL goalies once a week where they sort of go over plays with us and walk us through the nuances of their save selections. It's been one of our most popular features in a generation where we hear a lot about goalies, young goalies becoming quote unquote goalie school goalies, because everything is structured in front of them and they know where the next pass is going and they become really efficient at moving around in these drills. But, sometimes lose the ability to read the game. We give them a glimpse into just how quickly and how much information NHL goalies process in real time when they're reading a play. So going online just definitely was a move that allowed us to do drill video when we're on the ice with guys, and then to film a drill with guys and then have them walk us through the keys to it. NHL goalie coach, just so much easier than trying to translate that into print would have been impossible. So it made a ton of sense, and we started that 2 years ago. We've been around 10 years. We started the premium product 2 years ago, and I will confidently say there's nothing else like it for goaltenders in the world.
Yeah, as a very recent subscriber, I was kind of blown away just by how much of an inside look you guys offer. From the people that make this their craft, and it's the content is amazing. I've barely scratched the surface, and I'm constantly wanting to load up something new. Definitely I listened to the pre-Christmas podcast with Jamie Storr and the Christmas gift ideas one. The Jamie Storr stories. Oh my God, those are just amazing to hear his backstory and his dad's backstory. I mean, to get that close to the NHL and be told, sorry, you don't have a pedigree, so we can't put you out there because Harold Ballard would fire us both. Right? That's crazy.
Now I know why you want to get back in net, Bill.
Yeah, that's right.
As soon as you hear that story, you think dude, I could make the NHL in my 40s. He did.
Right. I could do it. I could at least be the third string e-bug for the Blues, right? That's what everybody wants now. We want to be the e-bug, right? That's readily available during COVID.
You went to school out here. It's the same school as what was it? Mike McKenna went to school, same as you, CBC, right?
No, McKenna went to Parkway South.
That's right.
We haven't produced an NHL caliber goalie. Joey Vitale was our first.
That's right. Okay, so first goalie in the NHL could be Bill Day. We'll see. Stay tuned.
Definitely not going to happen.
But,
if
Kevin,
it is, the world is ending.
That's right. Kevin, we want to talk to you mostly, and your name has popped up in a lot of, all of us had known of you before, but your name started popping up in Blues feeds all over the place because of something that you had tweeted after the Blues got shellacked by the Flames. Was that last week, 7-1, and you had kind of, gone off on Twitter and said, listen, let's look at all these advanced stats. And before we get into exactly what you said, for the novice advanced stats people, there's a couple things that you reference, and I think it's important to point out what those mean, what they are, why they're important. A couple ones you mentioned were I'm sorry, try to read it on the fly here, adjusted save percentage and save percentage differential. What exactly do those mean? If you were telling a 4-year-old about what those mean?
Well, you don't need to be a goalie to understand that shot quality is a real thing. That a guy, banging away from the edge of the crease when you're set and square and in position and just basically slapping it into coverage with no net to shoot at is a lot different than a guy taking a shot from that same spot off a, backdoor lateral, pass through a seam where the goalie has to travel cross crease. Like, there's your simplest example. There are a lot of different factors that go into shot quality. And so I'm pretty blessed to have access to ClearSight Analytics, which is a company started by Stephen Balaket, former Rangers goaltender, who, based on that premise, like, he really wanted to measure that shot quality in a way that nobody else really was, like, just try and dig deep, much deeper than the public numbers. I think the public numbers, they're based off NHL play-by-play. They do a great job of adding context. But to truly sort of define shot quality, I think we need more context, especially in small samples. And so that's what they do. They've got 34 different points of data for every shot, not just where the shot's taken from, but what preceded it. They're the only one that I believe, even amongst the private ones, that actually account for screens and traffic, and not just was he screened or wasn't he, but like there's 5 different types of screens: layered screens, defensive screens, own screens, offensive screens, and each one of them. So each type of shot with all these different factors basically gets a value. And so it's so hard to compare one goaltender to another around the league. It's almost apples to oranges sometimes, because their environment, their defensive environment, the shot quality they face is so different. And so we come up with numbers to try and normalize that. An adjusted save percentage is basically, we create an expected save percentage based on the quality of shots they face, and the adjusted is how much above or below they are that. So it sort of helps provide a baseline. The other one is goals saved above expected, which does the same thing, but it just kind of counts how many goals a goalie is saving his team, again, based on what he's stopping and the quality of it. But it's a bit more of a cumulative stat, right? So that's where it's hard to sort of measure Ville Husso, because he hasn't had as much time in the net. Although, to be honest with you, he's been so damn good that he has rocketed up the goal save charts to the point where the last I checked, and just excuse me, I'll poke my head down to the computer because I've got it all up, like, he's 4th in the NHL, and he's seen half the shots that the other guys have. Like, that's how good he's been. But to me, it's more the numbers I looked at that night were save percentage, because that, again, it's not cumulative. It sort of normalizes more of almost like on a per shot basis, the average. And none of this was, and the irony is, I was going to tweet that before the Flames game. Got busy with some Canucks news that morning. They hired Emily Castonguay as their first female assistant general manager here in Vancouver. Obviously a big story, and one that I covered for NHL.com that kept me busy into the night. Because don't forget, St. Louis was here the night before. And I tweeted out that, Billy was starting 3rd straight, and, the amount of it wasn't all vitriol, but the reaction to it surprised me in the level of criticism of Binnington. And so I dug into the numbers. I wanted to have a look. I'm like, wow, like, this really looks like Billy's taking over this job. Let's take a look at how this, and the biggest thing, guys, is it's easy for me to tell your audience that you can't compare the chances the New York Rangers give up, or the chances, let's pick a great defensive team. The Rangers are a bad example. Well, let's pick the Rangers as the bad defensive team. You can't compare the chances a goalie faces in New York with, say, the chances a goalie's facing in, I'm trying to think of the obvious example, like Colorado or, Boston, Toronto. Toronto's become an elite defensive team. Teams like that. Like, you just can't compare them. But what most people forget is sometimes in the short sample of 1 year, you can't compare goalies on the same team. I've seen massive swings in expected save percentage. In other words, how tough is your environment within the same team? And there are a lot of different factors that can go into that. So anyways, is that enough of a primer? Do you think I've explained like what the numbers mean?
Yes. Oh, that's perfect. That's what we're looking for. I mean,
everybody?
No, that's fantastic.
No. You haven't lost the host. I think that's all that matters, right?
Okay. So part 2 is, let's take a look at the Blues, right? And so now that we've explained sort of what we're trying to look for, let's take a look at St. Louis. And when I looked into it, and like I said, I did it the night before, and I was planning on tweeting it going into the Calgary game. Unfortunately, and it looks like I'm just being a giant Jordan Binnington defender because I do it after a game where he's pulled after 2 periods. By the time I actually get back to it and tweet it, you know, that level of disdain for him is already picked up, and it kind of looks like I'm just pulling out the goalie union card and defending the goalie. But the reality is, heading into that night, Jordan's adjusted save percentage was 2.1% above expected, which put him in a conversation. I'd actually have to pull up the tweet because the numbers have changed a little bit. Actually, based on that night, it took a dip. But like it was 11th or 12th in the league. And it was
at
ahead
the time
of
you sorry to interrupt, but
yeah.
I got the tweet in front of me here. At the time, you said he was a 2.1 save percentage differential plus 2.1, which is 7th in the NHL, fraction below Tristan Jarry and ahead of names like Frederik Andersen, Jacob Markstrom, Thatcher Demko, and Jack Campbell, several of which you get Vezina buzz. So that's
that was kind of my point.
Continue.
Yeah, and that was kind of the point, right? Like, listen, Ville Husso's on an all-world heater right now. When I look at adjusted save percentage right now in the National Hockey League, #1 with a bullet. Like, even after the night against Winnipeg, which dropped it, you know, a good chunk, almost a full percent, because again, small sample size. It'll only take a couple of nights like that for it to sort of come back down to earth, because it hasn't been that many games. But he's #1 in the National Hockey League. So none of this is a criticism of Ville Husso. He's earned what he's gotten. He's earned the playing time. It was more to point out that as these people were ripping on Jordan Binnington, like, he was 7th in the league. He was ahead of guys who were being touted as Vezina candidates. Like, the sort of the negativity towards him just didn't make a lot of sense to me as an outsider, and as a guy who knows probably a handful of teams around the National Hockey League that would like to have Jordan Binnington stopping pucks for them. So that was the first point. And then the second point was, you know, again, people would look at that and say, well, the numbers don't add up because what we see on NHL.com, you know, or the public stats don't match that. Well, so let's take a look at environment. Binnington's expected save percentage at the time was .871. It actually went down to .870 after the Calgary game. That's the second lowest in the National Hockey League. So in other words, his environment was the second toughest in the NHL for any single goalie. Only Joonas Korpisalo was playing behind a tougher environment. So again, he was outperforming at a level that is similar to guys who are in the Vezina discussion. The difference is their baseline was so much higher than his that their raw numbers look great. His baseline was so low that his raw numbers look, you know, below average, and everybody's criticizing them. Because of the quality they're giving up, it should have been seen as much better. Now, most people don't have access to those stats. It's tough. Nobody can pick that out by the eye test. Like, I don't know what the narrative is around the Blues there in terms of defensively, but the numbers say it's not great. They give up a ton. And yet, Ville Husso's his expected was at the time 12 points higher. So still the 10th toughest environment in the NHL. Not great, but a 12-point difference, right? So again, he's been that much better in a slightly easier but still tough environment. Binnington's just, and that can be the difference between Ville getting Seattle and Vancouver. Because Seattle is a pop gun offense. Vancouver, when they came through here, was missing I think it was Horvat, Garland, and JT Miller, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and then Binnington gets the, you know, if I can say it, the shit sandwich start on the second end of the back-to-back that is frankly normally reserved for your backup. And he wasn't great, but the Calgary Flames were the first team in that game all season to generate, all season, every game in the NHL, by these numbers, they were the first ones to top 7 expected goals in a game. They actually generated 7 expected goals. Now, only 5 were on Jordan. Ville was in for the other 2 expected, and he didn't give them up. So he was good in the third period. But still, just to me, a sign of a team that, whether it was a schedule loss, you know, playing 3 and 4 on the road and wanting to get home, you know, a night where I don't think you can pin it on goaltending, even though Jordan's numbers still took a hit that night. But those are not normally the starts that you give or are reserved for your quote-unquote #1 goaltender. So I just think a lot of the noise around Jordan Binnington, and again, there's probably a lot of people that, you know, have seen the starting the fights, and they're like, why is he on here defending Jordan Binnington? But the numbers just say that a lot of the noise and negativity around him, and especially as I was hearing once they came through town, once St. Louis came through town, and I see these reactions to my tweets, it just felt disproportionate. And so, yeah, maybe it was a little bit defending a goal union, member of the goalie union, but the numbers made it pretty clear. Like, he is not a guy you should be trying to run out of town, as much as you should still be celebrating how good Ville Husso has been.
This is interesting. I was going to show quick. This is interesting and refreshing because this is generally what we've kind of been talking about with folks on social media, interacting with and whatnot. The burn Bennington at the stake people, more or less. And it's but we're saying without the advanced stats and the stuff that you're bringing to the table here.
Stats.
Yeah. And it's so interesting to see those stats kind of back up what the eye test was for a lot of us, that were kind of like, well, I don't think Bennington has been, just by watching the games and seeing the situations he's put in. I understand why the goals are going in, and every goal is a case by case basis on whether or not the goalie should or shouldn't have had it, what's happening around him, all that stuff plays in. But it's just refreshing just to see advanced stats kind of fall in line with, okay, well, I'm not stupid for thinking what I was thinking about what was going on.
Well, and to back up what you're saying, Bill, maybe he's in your goalie union that you keep mentioning. Kurt and I are not, and we have been, all three of us have been saying, Ville's been great. Play Ville, play the hot hand. That makes perfect sense. We want to win games, so let's see Husso in as much as possible. But don't pin anything on Binnington. He was, like you're saying, he was the savior for the Blues early in the season. And I'm sure if you look back at last season's numbers, even in the playoffs, he was the only guy showing up some nights. So,
Right.
to get this kind of validation, and what you're saying is, what we have been saying on this show too, is the eye test is what's most important. Advanced stats are very important, but it's also important to watch the games and say, okay, where are the advanced stats agreeing with what I'm seeing, and where are they disagreeing with what I'm seeing? And this was something that was still kind of disagreeing with the stats that are available to us. But to hear this from you, it sounds like these are lining up pretty well with the eye test.
Yeah, and that's good to hear, because let me tell you, the people in my Twitter feed weren't subscribing to your eye test. I don't know if he's just
isn't that crazy?
A guy that just sort of generates polarizing, I guess would be the word. But yeah. I was really surprised. And to be honest with you, we had one of our analytics writers, and he's a goalie, Paul Campbell, do an article on Jordan sort of the year after the Cup, because we heard a lot of sort of sophomore slump talk. We heard a lot of, one cup wonder type stuff. And when we dug into the numbers, it was the same thing. Like, listen, the narrative during that Cup run was that they were this great defensive team, and it just didn't hold water anymore. And Jordan was a big part of bailing them out. And so I think, even the perception that he took a dip, like, frankly, he's been really good the whole time. Maybe not second half of that run in that season good, but really, really good. Like, I consistently saw him in the top 10. We were talking about Olympics. You see the names on the wall behind me. I mean, outside of Carey being ready for puck drop if the NHL had gone, Binnington was next on my list to represent Canada at the Olympics. And all the numbers, not just this year, but for the past couple of years, backed that up. Like, he was the best statistical option. I'm not sure Team Canada was going to live with the you want to go stuff, but he was the best option. And, the other thing too, guys, like, to look at the numbers defensively, there's a metric that ClearSight has, and it's a pretty simple, it's a pretty common metric, but again, the way they measure it differs from a lot of the public numbers. And it's basically high danger, even strength, 5-on-5 chances, for and against. And for the past couple of years, the against part has been a massive predictor of playoff success. Like, it has been, I don't mean just like who's going to win a cup. I mean, series by series, the team that's better in that almost always wins it. It takes an exceptional goaltending performance to sort of turn that on its ear, or historically bad goaltending on the other end. And, like, to the point where, you could make a good investment on these numbers, with the books. St. Louis right now is 30th in the National Hockey League in expected goals against them in that 5-on-5 metric. So again, like, we look at Binnington's numbers and we look at, expected save percentage being so low in the league, and you're like, okay, well, how does the team defend? Well, it kind of matches, like, as it should, and you would expect that, but, like, it's right there. When the year that they won the Cup, and of course, we're just at the point where that's cut off from my access to it. I remember they were like 4th in the league. Like this was a metric where they were one of the dominant teams. The year that Tampa, I think that was the same year Tampa was knocked out in the first round, they were 20th. The year they won their first cup, they were 2nd. Like, this is a metric that it's very hard to ignore come playoff time, regardless of your goaltending, because it essentially it's tough to sort of count on goaltending to hold up to that level when the defending is that poor, and it doesn't really bode well right now. And maybe Ville Husso on a heater or Jordan Binnington at the top of his game is enough to overcome it. But when I look at how they're defending as a team, it's a little foreboding in terms of what we're looking at for playoff success this year, or likely playoff success this year, regardless of who's in net.
Comment in the YouTube chat, Jason Miller, who we call because it's his Twitter name, Crappy Goalie. He is a goalie, and he apparently is crappy. Actually, I can speak to that. He is. He says, I can listen to this. Yeah, he says, I can listen to this all day, no joke. And to you, Jason, I say, I think it's time for you to subscribe to InGoal Magazine and check out their podcast.
There you go.
Podcast is free. We'll give you a taste of what's on the InGoal Mag website. Podcast is free, though. And I think we're 155 episodes in. Had Pecorine the other day. Had J.S. Jaguar this week, who just dove into some of the Francois Allaire stories and the equipment stories. And you know that J.S. Jaguar, speaking of playoff overtimes, I'm going to give away a part of the episode. Bill will appreciate this because he knows how goalies, we get a reputation for maybe not being that tough. Jiggy, because of his hydration issues, so you get into a playoff series, he knew right away in the first over. He wasn't waiting for multiple overtimes. As soon as it got past the third period, he had an IV put in. So for every period after, he would have an IV. But if you're worried about multiple overtimes, as you know, getting an IV in is not always easy. So they left the catheter in. He would leave the catheter in and play overtime periods with that thing stuck into his arm. I don't even know if that's medically wise, but he talked about the team doctor putting his line in, like getting his line set up. And he said, it's usually nurses that should put your line in because doctors aren't necessarily great at it. And I think he probably didn't give the doctor enough credit because when you're as dehydrated as he would have been, it's hard to find a line, right? He's talking about blood everywhere. They're trying to find a line. And so just leave the catheter in. Comes back for the second OT. Because remember, there's that 5 OT? Is it Dallas too? Humidity. Come back in, plug the IV in. So
my God,
we do get into the minutia, but we also have a little fun with some great stories especially from the guys that are done playing.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine
for that.
Wow. God.
Yeah.
So Bill, when you get back into it, and if you playoffs and if they have 5 overtimes, I'll bring an IV and all
right,
I'll be on call. At least
Dr.
some Pedialyte. Yeah, just inject the Pedialyte right into your veins. Yeah, just do that.
Beer league, you just Coors Light, you're fine.
Yeah.
That's right.
Man.
So something that we always hear about goaltenders is having tape on a goalie. A lot of times we hear, like with Binnington's playoff run, especially in 2019, and now we're kind of hearing it about Husso. Well, the other teams don't have tape on him, so that's why he's playing so well. Is that a real thing? Because we always say, like, you've got scouts, you've got people that can go and see, but I want to get your take on this. Is that something that's real, not having tape on people?
I think it can be to a certain extent. Like, I think that, I think of like Matt Murray's playoff run for sure in the postseason, like kind of the first time came out of nowhere. And I think there was a scramble there to sort of get video and get a good pre-scout built. But the goalie coaches these days, like, it's the goalie coach that breaks down the other goalie, right? They do the work. I'm going to suggest that at this point, they probably have a pretty good, book, for lack of a better term. They probably have a pretty good pre-scout built on Ville Husso. To me, guys, where that becomes more relevant is in the postseason, in the playoffs. And maybe last year was a weird year because everybody played the same team so much. But I honestly, it's one of 82, where it's Vancouver tonight and Edmonton tomorrow and Calgary the next night. There are some guys for sure that study it. I think when you get into a shootout, they've probably paid attention to that pre-scout. Maybe on the power play, there are certain tendencies. They'll run a setup designed specifically to target something in a goaltender. But for the most part, those things don't start to really have an effect until we get into the playoffs. And that's where I think an entire team is paying attention, because they know that if your goalie coach finds something that can be the difference, where to shoot, how to try and generate offense that can be the difference between scoring and not scoring, guys are paying attention. I always point back to Washington's Cup run, especially the Cup final. Tap the computer here. Clearsight Analytics played a role in that Cup run because their goalie coach, Scott Murray, had access to it, and they sort of leaned on him, not to dictate how Washington attacked, but to have a voice in the type of offense they were trying to create in general. Because the one thing about measuring how goalies perform is it also shows you what works on goalies. Like, it shows you what's going to have success, not just on individual goalies, but how goals are scored in the NHL. And to me, Pittsburgh did it before them, and Washington sort of followed suit using these numbers. Like, it was all about laterals, right? It's all about creating laterals. And so as long as Marc-Andre Fleury with Vegas was going to come out to the edge of his crease and hold, and that's what they loved about him in Vegas. That's what Dave Pryor loved, that ability to not retreat, to not give in the face of that attack. Well, if you can make that pass off a 2-on-1, as fast as Fleury is, with the finishing level Washington had, they knew they were going to score, right? Even knowing that was the plan and watching those games, you'd have Ovechkin coming down the wing on a 2-on-1, loaded up, and you're just like, oh man, he's shooting that. And he passed out of it. And even I was like, oh my God, how do you pass out of that? Well, you pass out of it because the shot itself, even for Ovechkin, is a 10% scoring chance on a 2-on-1. Make that lateral pass happen to the other side for a quick release, and it goes up to over 40%, right? So to me, if you can find those types of, layers, that's a general goal, like sort of around the league number, 10% to around 40%. If you make that pass, it applied specifically to Fleury. I think it's in the postseason when you can find patterns on the video that match what the numbers say, you can maybe start to exploit things. Even in Binnington's Cup run for St. Louis, I thought it became pretty clear as the playoffs went on, a lot of stuff sort of down below the goal lines and pop passes into the slot. I thought St. Louis was kind of bad at giving them up. There were some really good looks. Low, high plays as a means of offense, to me, are underutilized, because as a goaltender, what it forces you to do as soon as it goes behind the goal line, I have to turn my head, look under the net, find that puck. I'm no longer looking at where all the attacking players are, right? Like, I've had to turn, and the defensemen have to do the same. Like, it's a great way to generate offense. But there was elements of the way Jordan was playing it. And I think you saw even in the Cup final, there were times where it looked like he was even trying to change how he was playing it. Like the way he was using his post and going in and out. And I don't think it was a weakness, but for a guy that was playing so well, it was one of the few areas where teams were finding goals. And I thought as the playoffs went on, teams started to look for it more and more, not just because it was resulting in goals on Jordan, but because the Blues were sort of giving up that real prime layer behind the defense on those types of pass outs. And so to me, that's where a pre-scout matters. I'm pretty sure that if playoffs started tomorrow, whoever the goalie coach is for the team that the Blues would be playing would be able to build a pretty good book on Ville Husso. I just don't think. I don't know if it'd make that much of a difference. Like his numbers, when I look at all the different categories, like I've got his, like even plays that are hard to create, broken plays create a ton of offense in the National Hockey League. Husso's like +5 in goals. His goal differential on broken plays, like which speaks to his ability to hold edges and not get committed and not get stuck down. But like that's a type of play. Like it's hard to pre-scout a guy who's playing that well. There's not like every weakness here is relative. There's not a negative number on the board for him. Everything is plus or real plus. So that said, goalie coaches are going to watch video and find that stuff. There's more than enough footage out there already. I just think for the second half of the season, the chances of Nashville on a Wednesday or, Carolina coming in on a Friday and the guys paying that deep level attention to a scouting report, probably not going to happen.
Yeah. And speaking of playoffs, it was mentioned at the time in 2019, Jake Allen backed up Binnington in the playoffs, and it was mentioned, and it's been said a lot, seemingly every time they talk about Jake Allen, that how he would mimic in practice the opposing team starting goalie, and play like the opposing team starting goalie for the Blues in practice, so they could get practice shooting on his style. Is that a common thing, or is that kind of an overblown thing that they were talking about, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's not overblown because I'm the one that wrote that story first, so it clearly.
Okay, well there you go. There you go.
There you go.
There you go. Perfect. Perfect.
That was part of my unmasked column coming into the next year. I mean, I don't want to overstate the importance of it, but it is pretty uncommon. Like, it wasn't very common. You know, some of the Blues players I talked to for that story, sort of before that, you know, before it sort of got out as a story, you know, kind of mentioned that it added a different element. It's a one thing to have, you know, something up on a whiteboard with do this or do that. Here's this goalie save percentage on that. I think if I remember correctly in talking to the players, and I think, you know, like Braden Shen was really good for that story, you know, thinking back to it, it really seemed to resonate with Tuukka in the finals because Tuukka plays different, right? Like Tuukka's got a lot more flow to his game. He will literally back his way across a crease. So you think of a T-cut, guys, you all play, right? So you think of if you're retreating with a rush, instead of sort of, I'm going to stand up and do it, instead of sort of just turning and pushing into that new lane, like Tuukka's a guy who sort of glides backwards and opens up and sets. And so there's a lot more moving parts in Tuukka's game. There's some uniqueness in how he moves. And so if your pre-scout says, let's get him moving this way and you should shoot here, I think to sort of see that as a player, having Jake out in video demonstrating it, so the players are like, okay, now I know what you're talking about. Now I see how the way he turns is going to limit his ability to rotate to his right. If I catch him at this moment, yes, he can push back this way anytime, but he can't go that way. Little details like that, I don't think it would be an overstatement to say it made a difference and it was the turning point. But I thought it was obviously a cool story, and I was happy to write it. But it definitely didn't hurt, right? And it definitely is unique. I've never heard of that. Like, I've seen, like, clearly there's a ton of video that goes into a pre-scout, especially by that point of the playoffs. But to have a guy actually go out and be a part of creating that video so that the guys on his team would have that reference point, that was pretty cool. And frankly, I've never heard of anything like that. And that was why I thought it was a story. I've been writing a weekly goalie column for NHL.com, well, bi-weekly now with the pandemic. But, you know, like, I'm 6 years in and, you know, sometimes I run out of ideas. So that I was happy to have had that one when the Blues came through town, have somebody tell me that story so I could share it.
Okay. So when I asked if it was overblown, I wasn't talking about your article. I was talking about the amount of talk. 'Cause I don't know if you're familiar with how much Blues media will talk about that to this day still. And I didn't know if, okay, I didn't know if that was something that was a common thing that every backup would do in the playoffs, or if this was a pretty unique thing. And that's why I was asking. I was like, are they making a big deal out of this? Does every team do this or not? That's my point.
No, I wasn't trying to chirp, but it's more like, and I didn't take it personally, but it was more to I guess my point would be, it is very unique. I can't say how much of a difference it made. Certainly I got some quotes that said it did help. And I think it speaks to David Alexander as a goaltending coach, finding, like, he's always been an outside the box way as a teacher. Like, he doesn't just do what everyone's doing. He's looking for new and innovative ways. You've probably seen the guys, you know, wearing, you know, different, the X tracker on the mask. Like, David's a guy who's looking to develop, who's looking for new ideas, and probably speaks to Jake as a person that, you know, cast into this role, he's willing to go out there and mimic other goalies. And, you know, frankly, it speaks to the relationship that those two had, that they were, you know, willing to, and I guess eager to try something as different as that. I have seen it one other time, actually, now, 2010 Winter Olympics, covering a Team USA practice, Tim Thomas with Ron Wilson at center ice. And because his style was so unique, there was no mistaking it. Tim Thomas was imitating Martin Brodeur going into a game against Canada. And for sure, they were going to town on some of the unique aspects of Marty and his, you know, at the time, pretty much as close as was left to a stand-up style. And there was a back and forth there with some of the players where you could tell, and they wouldn't really talk about it at the time. But I remember watching that practice and knowing damn well what was going on. This was Tim sort of demonstrating some of the unique aspects that they were probably talking about from a pre-scout perspective going into a game against Marty, a game where, you know, covered it and remember it well, like you had guys like Brian Rafalski teeing up, top of the circle, open looks and shooting along the ice. And I don't think that was a coincidence, because the one thing about the butterfly is it takes that away. And so Marty was a guy who didn't default to it. And I thought they tried to attack him in unique ways, probably because a lot of those Team USA guys were on the Devils. But also I think watching Tim Thomas break it down, there was an element of Tim sort of playing a similar type of role in a smaller sample to what Jake was doing for the Blues that year they won the Cup.
So the real question from that is, was that before or after Tim Thomas would scarf down some McDonald's?
See, I don't know those. I don't know that story. I haven't heard that one. So see, some things are, maybe it's just like, the earmuffs go on when I hear anything like that.
Yeah, that was a story that I don't remember who it was, but somebody outed him as since he was the backup, that he was going to McDonald's pretty much every day in Olympic Village.
I don't know what the eating options would have been, I mean, it's like, we got great food here in Vancouver, sushi steakhouses, but they were kind of stuck in the village. And man, if you weren't playing, like, I mean, how many stories do we have of the old shin showed stuck into those leather horsehair pads, Bill, back in the day by the backup goalie at the Forum. So I don't blame him if he decided to have an extra snack.
Yeah, I don't either. That's what I said, man. If you're back, actually, I think he was third string. I could be wrong on that, but if you're not playing, live it up. Eat some McDonald's. Go to bed after the game. Wake up, get McDonald's again. Who cares?
That's how I approach beer league. I don't know what the problem is.
Exactly. Me too.
Same thing. Yeah, all right. Olympics, beer leagues, that's the same thing.
So, one thing about lately that's been kind of the talk in St. Louis, and we've all been kind of refuting it, and I know other blues podcasts have said the same thing, and other blues radio shows as well. The talk is, Ville Husso's playing so great. He's a free agent. Trade him now, and just roll. You got Charlie Lindgren in the minors. He can step up. And then other people are on the other side of it saying, well, Jordan Binnington's playing bad. He's got a bad contract. Trade him. So, and our take, which I'm guessing we'll see if you agree with, is you have two good goalies who are ready for a Stanley Cup run. Why trade your goaltenders? You want both of them to play, and whenever one goes down, you take the other one, put him back in. So, is the number one goalie thing kind of a thing of the past? Are we starting to see the last couple of years a shift of, you need your dual starters to be able to compete in the Stanley Cup playoff push? Or do you think that's still a thing, that you need one guy and then you don't need anybody else? What's a trend kind of been like in the NHL?
Well, I mean, I think it's shifting a little bit, but, you can't say definitively that we've gone away from, a number one goaltender scenario when the guy who's won the last two cups is like the biggest workhorse in the National Hockey League. But the problem is, Vassy's a freak, right? Like, he's a freak physically. Right. He does things on the ice that are just so off the charts good, it leaves you shaking your head, right? Like, he's the best goalie in the world with Igor Shesterkin making a push this year. But so I guess Vassy and like every minute of both cup runs, like, he never wore down. He never got tired. Poor Curtis McElhinney retired with 2 Stanley Cup rings, but he never touched the net in the playoffs. Right. So, so it would be wrong to say definitively we are going to tandems, because even when you get to the playoffs, you're usually picking one. I love the concept. If we ever get a team that really believes in a back and forth, like they really see no difference between one guy and the other, I'm still sort of waiting for a team to just go back and forth, to alternate in the postseason. It hasn't happened since, I think, 89. The Albany Devils under Robbie Fatorik did it with Corey Schwab and might have been Mike Dunham. Went back and forth every single game for the entire playoffs and won a Calder Cup. That's the last time we sort of thought it'd be successful. I thought we might see it last year with Lehner and Marc-Andre Fleury. They finished the season, both of them playing exceptionally well. Just like, if you're the number one, you want to play every night. But what's the next best thing? If you want your rhythm and your timing, it's every second night, and both guys stay engaged. I still think that at some level that was part of the plan for the Vegas Golden Knights last season. The plan went out the window when Marc-Andre Fleury absolutely stood on his head in Game 1 against Minnesota. the first 4 games of that series, because Vegas was one of these teams that was really low in those metrics I talked about. 5-on-5, they were not as good as Minnesota. Marc-Andre Fleury in the first 4 games, had 10 goals saved above expected in that series. Like, he single-handedly got them a 3-1 lead in that series. And I think because of that, they stayed loyal to him a little longer than they had planned to, because I think the intent was back and forth. So very long-winded. I don't think most teams are still going to pick a guy, right? And maybe you do end up going back and forth, but usually it's going to be because you need to change things up as opposed to a planned actual rotation. That's so rare. But to get there, you're going to need both. Like, we may not have the NHL going to the Olympics. And February, I don't know how many games the Blues missed, so my apologies. I don't know how many they got to cram in this 3-week break. They may be one of the teams that has very few games and a big rest. But it doesn't matter because, so once the break ends, that schedule didn't change. Like, so teams like the Blues didn't get a bunch of games that were crammed into March, moved into February, did they? The schedule post-Olympics, or what was supposed to be post-Olympics, is kind of batty. And you are going to need 2 goaltenders. And as much as I'm a fan of Charlie Lindgren, and I think the step he's taken this season is, again, a credit to what the Blues have built in a goaltending department, not just David Alexander. And I talked to Charlie about this. And this is where we see the late bloomer stuff, right? Like, we're seeing it with Jordan Binnington's playing, or his offseason training partner here in Vancouver, Spencer Martin. 7 years pro. He comes in and gets a shot. He's 5 years between NHL starts. He goes 1-0-2. And the 2 overtime losses were the Canucks shorthanded personnel-wise against the Oilers, who put up 50 shots on him, and Florida as a wagon beat him in a shootout. Like, he's 1-0-2 with a .958. And again, he gets to an organization later, and he adds new things, new voices, new concepts that he hadn't thought of before, or in ways he hadn't thought of before. And all of a sudden, everything clicks for him. I think you're seeing that with Charlie Lindgren and the way he plays rushes, the way he's changed his mindset towards rush attacks with David and then with Dan Stewart, and how that's fueled a better positional game. And once you feel confident about your positional game, you're not reaching, you're not stretching, you're moving into pucks rather than reaching out for them, you're not opening holes, you just feel stable and solid. And you saw that in the way he played. So as much as that might be something that could continue, to me, unless there's a massive return, and there typically isn't for goaltenders, let's be honest, but unless you're looking at a massive return, I do not understand why you would do anything to undermine your goaltending depth heading into a part of the season where it's never going to be more important than that sort of quote-unquote post-Olympic break with all the games hammered on top of each other, and then a playoffs that we may not have back-to-backs like we did in the bubble in 2022 or 2020, but it's going to be a tight, compressed schedule again. So to me, that doesn't make a ton of sense unless the return's off the charts. And as I said, the market for goaltending, as much as there's always teams looking for it, you don't tend to get big numbers back or big deals. Like, goalies don't bring a lot of value in return right now.
I think that just kind of falls right in line with, I think, our general mindset as far as we may have to cut that soundbite out and use it later on just to back up what we've been saying with goaltending.
I was just going to say that I think that, like, it's probably to people who listen to the show regularly are like, oh, they're getting all their information from Kevin Woodley because this is what they've been saying for the past 2 months.
It's good. Today on Twitter.
That's right.
Today on Twitter, there was a conversation. One guy said, let's see, the only issue is at the end of the year, you're most likely letting Husso walk and getting nothing for him. Freeing up cap space is great, but then you're down to Lindgren next year as backup and no one really behind him. And I think my response to him was like, well, why are we automatically losing Husso? I don't understand why we have to lose someone in this whole thing. I mean, he's a free agent, but I mean, you can re-sign guys, and I don't think he's going to ask for them. He's had, he's still a small sample size of his career. I'm not sure how much he can demand yet. So,
yeah, I was going to say, I think that, trying to add the goaltender piece, like if you're thinking about teams that are looking to add goaltenders, it's going to be, somebody's going to look to add a goalie. Like if they want to make a push in the playoffs, they're going to do it then. If you're a team that's going to, press the reset button, probably not going to look to pay a goalie a lot of money during that time frame. So I haven't gone out to look to see what the market looks like this summer for other free agent goalies, but Doug Armstrong, if as much as I used to hate the guy and deride him, he is a brilliant general manager, and he has made some really shrewd signings. Bringing in the right people, bringing back the right people, and at this point, I'd be shocked if Husso was gone this offseason. I think other things will change before that happens.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see. I don't know what the market is for Jordan Binnington, guys. Like I kind of try to avoid, I don't have any inside information. I'm not like an insider like the Elliot Friedmans and the Bob McKenzies of the world, and so it's just not something I've even dug into, to be honest with you. I would think that, when I look at Edmonton, like there's a team that he would help, no question. But can they afford that type of commitment on a cap hit moving forward? Probably not. The Washington Capitals are a really good defensive team that is getting undone a little bit by the consistency of Ilya Samsonov. Vitek Vanacek has been good, but I'm not sure anybody looks at him, even internally outside of the goaltending department, says this guy's going to carry us to a Stanley Cup. They could use a little bit of that swagger maybe in net. But again, when you look at teams like that, can they afford not just the cap hit the rest of this year, but the full contract the rest of the way? There's not a lot of teams that can probably pull the trigger on that deal, and I probably put Colorado in that conversation as well, right? The Kemper thing, record-wise, has worked out, and I actually think he's starting to find his legs behind that team. It's just a matter of staying healthy, and I know a lot of people point to Colorado. I actually think that Pavel Francouz is going to open some eyes soon. He's finally got his legs under him after missing an entire season. People forget that until he sort of got hurt in that playoff run 2 years ago, like right up until the playoffs, he was pushing Philip Grubauer for the number one job. So, are they going to commit, salary and term as a team that's got other tough roster decisions and seems to be intent in kind of that Carolina mode where if we build a great team, we don't necessarily need to spend big in goaltending and let Grubauer walk. So, those teams that sort of have bigger goals this season, some of them could absolutely benefit from Jordan Binnington. They probably, if they look at the same numbers I'm looking at, they're not looking at the stuff that everyone on Twitter ripping the guy is. They're looking at this stuff and they're like, yeah, this guy he's a really good goaltender. He would help us. But like everything, it comes back to what you can fit. And, certainly the Blues, because of the contract, like there's no way they're eating money on it. And because of the contract, it's going to limit what you get in return, because the other team is looking at, like, yeah, we get a really good goaltender, but the contract, the uncertainty of it, we're not going to give you a bunch of assets for him because of the contract. And so if you're the Blues, do you undermine your depth that much heading into such a busy time of the season if you're not even improving elsewhere? You're not helping your defense. You're not doing anything that's going to get you out of the basement of the league 5-on-5 defensively. So, that's why guys like Doug Armstrong get paid the big bucks to figure that all out. I just get to yap about it online every once in a while.
I think you have to also talk about if the Blues were looking to move Binnington, then you're putting all your eggs in the Husso basket. And everybody knows he's been fantastic this year. But like we talked about, and you mentioned, small sample size, things can change in a hurry, right? So, I don't know if any of the Blues would say, we want to go with you. You're our goalie of the future, number one, right? We have cup aspirations, and Husso's the guy. I don't know if they're there for that. I don't think he's shown it over the long enough haul yet, but I don't know.
That's the thing, right? Like I can look at the numbers and they don't tell the whole story either, right? To me, they just give way better context than anything else. The reality is the people that are closest to it, the Dave Alexanders, the Dan Stewarts, the management group, they know what they have. Like they'll have, how much confidence they have, they'll know that right now. But there's still ups and downs that come with learning and time and experience and more minutes, right? Like this is one of the things, like right now, as Billy's picked up more and more games, like I talked to UC Saros about this week. It's one of the things that makes his run this season so remarkable is it really is his first year as the all-out number one goaltender. And that becomes a difficult transition. I think actually for him, it helped that he spent half a year. He sort of took over from Pekka halfway through last year and got a feel for it. But when you're playing like every second night and playing those number one minutes, you lose that time with the goalie coach to manage your game because you're trying to manage your body and trying to manage your rest. So the extra 20 minutes before practice, the extra 20 minutes after practice, position-specific stuff becomes more and more difficult to get when you're the number one guy because, hey, I can't be out there for third my rest for the next start. And it becomes a real balance to sort of manage your game and also manage your rest in that number one role. And it's usually a process that goalies need some time to work their way through. There's typically some ups and downs that come with that. Not everybody does it like UC Saros is doing this season where it's just like, yep, I've got this. Most guys, experience at least a few hiccups along the way.
You say you're not an insider, but I think you're an insight, or you provide some fantastic insight.
I'm gonna clip that myself.
Yeah,
So make sure you guys send me that. I'll put that in the Twitter bio.
That was the most genius thing ever said on this show.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
By Kurt Price.
Yeah, there you go. By Kurt.
By
Price.
Kurt. By Kurt.
Don't go stealing it.
Kevin, so one last question from me. Is this the best Canucks logo? I wore this in your honor. This is the best
I noticed
one,
that
right?
earlier. I was going to comment. It's I don't know.
And
man.
for those on the podcast listening, this is the skate one with the circle and
red, yellow,
the orange and the yellow.
It's the plate of spaghetti, basically, skating down.
Yeah.
I never heard that.
And a lot of people feel that way about it. I've got ties to that one because I grew up watching that team. And they are going to wear it once this year. And I think that the equipment, to give you guys a little taste of what's coming, that Thatcher Demko is going to wear that night with the dark black skate jersey might be enough to convince everyone that they should go to it more often. I like the stick and rink. I like the blue and the green colors to me. Like that just, man, I live in Shangri-La. I got the Pacific Ocean on one side. I got the mountains on the other and all that. Like, so I like what that blue and green represents in Vancouver. It's kind of who we are as we're a little, sushi and Birkenstocks and, a little hippie-ish out here. But I like the blue and green and what it represents. But wait till you see the set of pads and gloves and blocker that Thatcher Demko has. If you just Google Kirk McLean, click on images, it is going to be unreal, and it is going to complement that jersey and that logo beautifully. I didn't even know if they've announced the night they're wearing it, but I've actually seen the pads. I saw the prototype for them, and then I saw them in action at one practice where we were asked not to photograph it. It's sick. And if anybody remembers Kirk McLean and the run that he had, especially obviously in '94, it's going to invoke memories of that, and it's going to be a special night. And so it might be enough to win me over to that jersey, not just because you have it on your hat, Jeff.
I love that look. Yeah, you said that, and I thought, man, I hope he goes Kirk McLean. And hearing that he is, that's fantastic.
It's sweet.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome a couple years ago when Brian Elliott pulled the Cujo, the whole Cujo motif from the 90s. I mean, the one Blues jersey, everybody raves about the throwbacks that the Blues have done for the Winter Classics, and one of our ongoing debates is are the quote unquote clown jerseys, the 90s horizontal or diagonal stripes, right? Are those, what are they? They were the Gretzky era, so they're always going to get a little bit of a pass. And but that,
as bad as these are, nothing tops. You guys remember when we had salmon colored jerseys here?
Yes. Awful.
Nothing will ever will ever be that bad.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah. But yeah, we're waiting for the next time the Blues are in an outdoor game so that they can do something with the early 90s jerseys that just haven't gotten any throwback love.
The whole Oates,
the whole Shanahan Oates era.
Yeah.
See that, but doesn't when you see those jerseys, like to go to Jeff's point, there was a 50th anniversary night here, they brought out all the players over the years and all the stars. And the biggest reaction of the evening, actually the biggest reaction was for Gino Ochocinco. But the visceral response where people just connected to a player and a moment, and frankly, a look, was Kirk McLean skating out in that jersey for the hat that Jeff's wearing a replica set of his gear. And I actually was the one that found a local guy that had a set built to look like it, because Kirk didn't have any of it, and the Canucks didn't have anything that looked like it. And so it was a local firefighter that uses that in his beer league, and it looks just like Kirk, and connected him with the team. And so Kirk put on the gear, and like all goalies, he doesn't even play goal anymore. He plays out, so he hasn't even had pads on in like 30 or 20 years or something like that. But he skates out in that replica of equipment of what he wore, and it just triggered something in everyone. Like it took you back, and it was probably the biggest reaction, like I said, outside of Gino, who is a folk hero here, deservedly so. Just the reaction was unreal. It was just you felt it in the building, and so I'm excited to see Thatcher wearing a tribute to that, because there is a connection, and it comes through equipment for us goaltenders that just, I don't know, it just hits different, to quote the kids.
Kevin, this has been awesome. We really appreciate you coming on. We can now call you a friend of the show, so that's awesome.
Absolutely.
How well do you know Lou Korak? He's a longtime friend of the show.
I don't know him really well. Like, we've never had a chance to meet. We've got to make that happen. Pandemic has made traveling difficult, but I know his work well, and I'm a big fan of it. Obviously at NHL.com, but also just I know he does a bunch of other things, and I've checked that out, and I just know he's really good at what he does. And
so you're a fan of his work. So I'm a fan of the friend of the show. Yeah.
I know. Lou did share your goalie discussion, your tweet thread on.
It's probably why I got so much reaction, is because Lou amplified it to the. So thanks, Lou, for all the hate mail.
For sure.
I really appreciate that.
No, it's a fantastic read.
To him.
Yeah.
No, that was great. But no, thank you, Kevin, very much for coming on. We want to give you a second to, obviously you've talked about it, but NHL.com, InGoal Magazine, how can people read what you write? How can they interact with you on social media? Where can they find you?
Honestly, the best way, my Twitter handle's been up here the whole time. Kevin is InGoal, and I link to a lot of the stuff we do at InGoal Mag, as well as my columns at NHL.com. But I'd probably just recommend go to InGoalMag.com. As much as it is a paid subscription site, you can preview all the stories that you would have access to. And so I talked about pro reads, the video sessions we have, pro drills where we're on the ice or shooting from the stands at NHL. But in the summers, we've spent, I want to say we had 4 or 5 summers in a row. We're on the ice with Carey Price, working with kids and capturing the video and capturing the moments, and sort of the tips that he delivers to the kids that frankly apply right up to beer league. If you're not a goalie, it's probably not for you. But if you're a goalie, there's lots of cool stuff in there, and will probably make you a better goalie. So InGoalMag.com, and I think all our social media is tied around InGoal Media and InGoal Mag as well. So it's pretty easy to find us, and the podcast is free. So be sure to check that out. I think like I said, 150 plus episodes. Got Henrik Lundqvist queued up here for the next couple of weeks as well. But we get into it with the goalie coaches too. We do. It's a lot of minutia. So again, if you're not a goalie, probably not. But if you are, we'll make you a better goalie, I promise. Even Bill.
I lied to you. Even Bill. I lied to you. I do have one more question. And okay. Bill brought this up before the show, and I forgot. Friend of the show, Curtis Sanford. We've had him on. He's a fantastic dude. How's he doing in his role as a goalie coach?
Excellent. I think one of the biggest reasons that the Canucks are where they are right now, and the way they were able to weather that storm when Demko and Halak were both stuck in protocol, was Spencer Martin. I talked about him as an example as a guy who trained with Binner in the summers. Who's shown like he could be one of those next guys like Lindgren, who gets an opportunity after all those years of sort of developing. And I think it's Sanford's voice, frankly. As much as Ian Clark is the goalie coach who gets a lot of credit here in Vancouver, it's been the work with Curtis in Abbotsford that really has propelled. I mean, Spencer, it's not just the changes they made, and Bill would have seen this. We just put a drill up with, don't giggle, but the drill is called double dumps. We just put a drill up called double dumps with Spencer Martin. and Curtis Sanford. You guys are all giggling. I knew it.
You literally said not to, and I did. I'm sorry.
If you wouldn't have said that, I might have skipped over it.
So we just put that drill up this week, and it's just an example. Like, see, the thing to me about Curtis is like all the technical stuff that we talk about that he's helped change in Spencer, but he's been there, he's done that, including working under Ian Clark here in Vancouver. Like, he knows what it's like because Ian's a very demanding goalie coach, so he knows as guys come in and get their first taste of that. Curtis knows what that's like. And so when Spencer came in here, he was 5th on the depth chart. And he was behind Mikey DiPietro. He was behind Artur Silov. He wasn't playing. He didn't play for a month. And I think it's a real credit, not just, again, to the work they did on the ice, but to understanding where Spencer was at and helping keep him engaged, not losing him, not pushing too hard, and helping him get through that month, incorporating the changes they wanted and coming out on the other side of it a better goaltender, so that he's able to actually outplay the other guys in a short sample, earn the number 1 job, and be the first man up when they needed him and take advantage of that opportunity. Curtis Sanford's a hell of a goalie coach. I give the Canucks credit too, because up until this year, it had been a part-time job. They invested in the position. They've made it a full-time job in Abbotsford, and Curtis committed to it. And I think he's a guy that someday is going to make an NHL club look really smart for hiring him. But for now, the Canucks are lucky to have him feeding the pipeline, just as I think the Blues are lucky to have that Dave Alexander-Dan Stewart combination in St. Louis.
Awesome. Kevin, thank you very much. This was very insightful, and I know the Blues fans will appreciate it. Again, Kevin Woodley. Kevin is InGoal on Twitter. Check him out, NHL.com, as well as InGoal Magazine. Kevin, thank you very much.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me, guys. I really enjoyed it.
Yep. Absolutely.
You don't live your life like the guy you see at the gym powerlifting 7 days a week. You also don't live it like the cycling class instructor or the vegan who gets her steps every day. So why go to the vitamin store and try the same stuff they're using and hope it meets your needs? Newsflash, it doesn't. RockinThatIDLife.com is here to help you better understand how you respond to food and exercise. Their supplements are developed to make sure you're using quality products you can trust to achieve the results that are meaningful to you. Is your goal to improve overall energy, achieve deeper sleep, lose or gain weight? The answer to all of those options? Rockin' That ID Life can help. Our friend Dustin at RockinThatIDLife.com is here to help you do life better and achieve your goals, not someone else's. Get started today by visiting RockinThatIDLife.com or emailing Dustin at RockinThatIDLife@gmail.com and tell him Let's Go Blues Radio sent you to receive 10% off your order. That's RockinThatIDLife.com and start your betterment journey today.
How great was that?
God,
that was fantastic.
I feel
new
validated.
favorite episode.
That was some good content there.
Yeah,
that was.
And
Thank you, Kevin.
I will. I am a very recent subscriber. Right? It's one of my last few tweets. When I subscribed, and it's the stuff that they've got on that site, and the connections that they are able to make with the guys doing the craft. I mean, he talked about it. They have, they just got Pekka Rinne. They're going to have Henrik Lundqvist. His jersey was just retired, right? They've got all of these legends. And that the episode he referenced about Luongo driving around in the car, that they made reference to that in the first pod I checked out. And I'm like, oh, that's got to be the next one I watch, next one I listen to. So just absolutely excited to be a subscriber on that site, and the depth of the content that they have there is amazing. Their contributors are just awesome, and yeah,
definitely. You realize all this is going to do, Bill, is just that itch is going to become a major scratch.
It's full on poison ivy now.
Oh, it is. Yeah. It's definitely fuel the fire.
It's flat out like some kind of like rip roaring. I don't know.
This is full on chlamydia now.
Some kind of chlamydia, poison ivy, herpes mix. And Arizona beat Colorado, guys.
Sweet.
Yes, I saw that.
Oh,
that was in the shootout.
shootout. Yeah,
right. The one thing we didn't get to do was rip on Kevin for not delivering Nashville loss to us tonight.
Yeah,
but
well.
we'll take the Arizona getting a point away from Colorado.
Yeah, but now they still have
we're
that point streak going. Undefeated in
They
regulation.
have the point streak, but not the win streak. So
Yeah.
we'll take it.
Yeah, we're not catching Colorado after a 19-game heater.
Not at home. I mean, at home, yeah, but they're gonna have to go on a nice losing streak for us to have a shot at catching them. Which, good luck. Okay, so rest of the show we can breeze through some of this stuff. The Blues had a great statement rematch game against Calgary, a 5-1 win in response to the 7-1 loss in Calgary a few nights before. Shen had a goal and an assist. Saad had 2 goals, 1 assist. Kyrou and O'Reilly had the other goals. Husso stopped 28-29. Adding to the goaltending controversy here that we no longer should have if everyone listens to this show. It's not too often you win 5-1 when losing the faceoff battle. They lost 61% to 39 in this game, which is a lot in a win to lose that by that much. I mean, that's a lot anyway. In a loss, it's crazy. Calgary goaltender Markstrom wasn't as sharp in this game as he was the other night, only stopping 23-28. Right. So,
yeah, he wasn't because we talked about how he shut out the Blue Jackets the night before,
right?
And we were like, "Oh shit, we're gonna see him again." And I'm glad we did.
Yeah,
he didn't look so strong.
Right.
Yeah, I made a comment when Bill said that, or we mentioned that he was he shut out. I was like, well, then he won't play tomorrow night against us. Well, he did. So I was wrong about that.
No, it was they were definitely gonna ride the hot hand there, and it was definitely a case to throw as many cliches into one statement as I can. That the tables were turned, she was on the other foot, compared to the game in Calgary where it was our end of a road trip, back-to-back nights. And yeah, not that the flight from Columbus to St. Louis is anywhere as near as bad as the flight from Vancouver to Calgary. I mean, it's an hour max from Columbus. It couldn't have been that bad, but Calgary played their asses off in the Columbus game. And team record 62 shot attempts. I think it was actually 62 shots on goal.
62 shots on goal. Yeah.
Right. It's the old school shots on goal.
Yeah.
They probably didn't have a whole lot left in the tank, and the Blues were up for revenge. So
third most shots in the modern era, something like that. I saw a stat. I didn't flash up on TV. Crazy.
Yeah.
Blues lost 4-1 to Winnipeg the other night in a probably the opposite performance they had the night before against the game before against Calgary. It was O'Reilly's 900th NHL game, 427 with Colorado, 249 with the Blues, and 224 with the Buffalo Sabres.
Listen, we've been doing this show, right? Well, maybe not as long as he's been in the NHL. I'll have to look back at his first season, and I know we used to talk about O'Reilly, just this dude's going to be great. He's going to have a great year or great career. I don't remember him playing 427 games with the Avalanche.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Right. He started as an 18-year-old, though, right?
Yeah.
Right? That was the crazy part. He wasn't expected to crack the NHL lineup as an 18-year-old, and he did, and he played a full season. So
yeah, he was fantastic too.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy that prepares so well that he could be setting some career numbers at the end of the day that blow everybody away. And speaking for this guy, I certainly hope that all of those are played in the Blues. All the remaining games in his career are played in the Blues jersey.
So 2009, 2010 was his first season with the Avalanche, and he played 6 years total there, which is awesome. He's just one of those guys that I feel like we used to talk about these kind of guys on other teams that maybe like a Dallas fan looks at and says that dude should be 50 by now, right?
Right.
Because he was there since he was 18. He's been playing good hockey. His worst years were in Buffalo, which who can't say that?
Yeah, only 30 right now.
I know Patrick Berglund can.
Out of the 2009 draft class, only Jonathan Tavares has played in more games than O'Reilly. So that's a nice feather in his cap. Stastny scored twice in this game. Winnipeg went with their backup goalie, Eric Comrie. And we're missing a number of players. Morrissey, Shvenkov, and Gavenke. How do you pronounce it? Gavenke? First, no, it's Gavenk. There's a V in there.
I know.
Gavenke.
I know.
First period, Blues almost scored right off the face-off. Crazy bounce. Comrie had to make a great save. Went off the defenseman, I believe. Almost was it like 6, 7, 8 seconds in, something like that.
Yep.
Tarasenko scores to put the Blues up 1-0 on the power play. Winnipeg scores the next 4 goals though, and
you know what's funny is, so they were talking about how the Blues need to take advantage of this Jets team because they've got, on the Blues broadcast, because they've got these young kids in. I think 2 of the guys that only played in 1 NHL game before this, and it was, basically you're just sitting here looking at it and saying this is going to be an onslaught. And I even had somebody tweet me after the Tarasenko goal that said this has the makings of a Blues blowout. And I responded. I saw
that.
And I said, don't speak too soon, man. You never know what could happen. I mean, we just talked about it. Arizona just beat Colorado. Yes, it was in a shootout, but Arizona beat Colorado. Crazy things can happen in this league. They're all NHL teams. So, yeah, it was I think we were feeling a little too confident after that Calgary win. It was. It
shouldn't have been because they got whooped the game before.
Yeah, so. But it was just I didn't like the effort. I felt like this was one of those games where you've got an 11-day break coming up. You empty everything you have into this game. I mean, I know that's a cliche, but there was a lot of lackadaisical play, I thought, in this game. There was a lot of – the Blues just looked tired. They looked worn out. And I get that. They've played a lot of hockey recently. But, again, this is your last game. Put it all on the line. Get out there and skate your ass off every shift, because then you can take 11 days and just do your morning skate, and that's it if you want to. It just was not a good game by the Blues. They did not look strong at all.
Own zone miscommunication goals on goals number 1 and 2 against the Blues led to turnovers. On the first goal against, Husso did a poor job trying to clear after Falk and Kyrou collided, which I didn't get to watch the game live. I watched highlights later, but watching, I'm like, oh God, this is like a kitchen era play on the ice. I'm watching that play reminded me of that era, but there's just complete lack of communication, turnover, and then Husso grabs Lewis puck and then just shoots it right into, I guess it was Stastny, right? And then Stastny puts it in behind Husso. So, and then the another more miscommunication on the near boards. Nobody goes for the loose puck after it was poked away. Winnipeg centers across the slot and counter scores. The exact same kind of goal that Kevin Woodley was saying the Blues give up, passes across. So,
and that's what I was going to say is I would love to see the analytics that he talked about from this game in particular, because Husso played well enough to win. He did, but he didn't stand on his head, and that makes me sit here and say, how good are the Blues when their goalie's not standing on their head? Was this just a poor game? Or is this just we're seeing the Blues as who they are, but we weren't getting the spectacular goaltending that we've been getting from Husso?
Yeah. I mean, I think 2 of the last 3 games have been, in the Winnipeg game totally should not have been a throwaway game, but it was, right? They really, after the second period, I had no hope that we were going to come back and win that game. It just, they were a tired team. on the verge of going on a pretty extended break, and they just wanted to get through it. They were going through the motions, and it just it felt to me like that game was just them saying, all right, let's get through this, we'll recharge, we'll come back. But is where we are at this point with this team, we can I think after tonight's episode we can conclusively say that goaltending is not the problem, and we have stats to back that up.
Yeah.
Right. Did the Blues make the wrong tweaks with the defensive personnel that they have in the offseason with changing the defensive structure? They're not eliminating the kinds of chances that we gave up last year. Right. We're still susceptible to those plays. Do we have the right defensive people in place? Do we have the right defensive system in place? Are we overusing Colton Parayko? Right? They want Colton Parayko to be a number one, but quite honestly, Justin Falk and Torrey Kruger probably are two best defensemen, and they're not always getting the number one minutes. I think these are things that I hope the coaching staff is looking at. I think I'm hoping that Doug Armstrong is exploring, an option for bringing in another defenseman.
I'd be shocked if he did not.
Right.
Shocked.
I am going to lament Mark Bergevin no longer being in Montreal for one thing, and that is we probably could have sent Scandella back there for Sherratt. And got the one guy that a lot of that seems to be available that would help this team, big bruising defenseman who actually would clear people out in front of the net.
Does anybody think that the forwards need
no
a jolt, and nothing is going to change in net? So
right.
The only thing that's going to
happen you saying
is a defense.
Are you saying do forwards need a jolt in terms of
making a trade to acquire someone?
Oh, I was going to say I think their defensive game needs help. Right. So maybe I don't even say you need to go out and get another gun. If you're going to do anything, maybe go out and get another defensive forward to help out.
I don't know.
Or do you force the use of the fourth line or put in Barbashev has had a great offensive year. His numbers are really contributing to the success of this team, but do you need to put him back together with Sundqvist and Tyler Bozak as your shutdown group? That's Bozak is this year's Steen. Right, you
do both
put those guys together.
Do right. that and acquire a defenseman.
Yeah,
I
totally think that's what I don't think you need to bring in a defensive forward. I guess is my point. I think you just tweak who you have, right? And the one thing I would probably do soon. We'll see how he is coming out of the break, but Robert Thomas needs to be have some of the responsibility taken away from him because his defensive game has been shit. He's been not pursuing the puck well, coming back into the zone, getting beat on high danger scoring chances.
I don't know if you can call it like a defensive for me that I was going to make this comment, but the fact that he'll turn it over and then not skate his ass off to get back and try and cover the guy that he lost the puck to. We saw that in the Calgary game, shorthanded, but we've seen it a lot. And we saw it a couple times in this game where he lost the puck and you saw his head go straight up in the air like, fuck, and then go to the bench. And it's like, no, you lose the puck. Don't even react. You go back and you try to fucking get that puck back. And that's just not what we're seeing from him right now.
The speed in the league now is you can't react like that. And I will say, I think that's a huge difference between Jordan Kyrou this year and Jordan Kyrou 2 seasons ago. He would give us a puck and he would just like, you could see him shrugging his shoulders like, I know I fucked up. But now he turns and hustles. And I think we need to see more of that from Thomas.
I agree. And I think that's, and to your point, Bill, where that has come to Kyrou with more experience. I think Thomas is that kind of player that you would see that kind of responsibility become more of a thing with him as he, gets more experience in the league, plays a couple more years. taking responsibility away from him, so he's not as relied upon in the defensive zone. Like playing him at wing. Do you play him at wing?
Well,
I mean, because that would take some responsibility in the defensive zone away from him.
But he's also killing penalties, right?
Yeah,
I think,
true.
I think
Which
maybe
I don't think is
limit
it. Yeah, you can't do that.
Right. Maybe you want him to learn it. And, the Blues were in a pretty decent spot, a couple of weeks ago in terms of their position in the division. But, after a couple of, throwaway games, you can't throw away a whole lot more games. You're going to have more consistent effort.
Right.
And,
Kurt,
I mean, go ahead, Jeff.
I was going to say, I hadn't thought about what you just said. Move him to wing. You might be able to put Sundqvist at center. He's played center before, and he's a good defensive forward. So
excellent defensive forward.
Maybe that's something you consider because, Thomas is relied on to be the up and down guys. For those who don't know, centers are expected to play a little more defensive hockey, which is why centers usually win the Frank Selke for defensive forward. But I think maybe saying, hey, we're taking you off center, that might be enough of a push because that's where he started, right? And it was, because you don't want to, it's rare you see a natural center really start in the NHL as a center. You usually see him start as a winger, get a pickup of the game, and then move to center. Same thing with Robert Thomas. Yeah, you take that away from him now, maybe that is the push he needs.
Well, less responsibility. That's the winger has. And it's now granted you're taking, ice space away from him in a way, whereas he in the offensive zone, that's where you want him, to be creating, creating space, creating plays in the space in the offensive zone that a center would have. So, I mean, there's a give and take there, but I think the trade-off will be a net plus for the Blues at this point, unless, something drastically changes with this defensive game. So I don't know. We'll see. Nate Schmidt scored on the power play for Winnipeg after Husso had a stick knocked out of his hand by Bertuzzo. It's 3-1 at this point. And late in the third. Yeah. Go ahead, Bo.
So I was just going to say Bertuzzo right now, these last two, right. He's been, you get to a point where you're a detriment to your goalie. You're doing too much. I'd like to see Jake Wellman come in for a game and give him a spell when I think our better third pairing on defense is Bertuzzo and Wallman, but after Bertuzzo's mishaps, interfering with his own goaltenders in the last few games, something's got to change there.
You know what I hope Robert Bertuzzo is doing right now? I hope he is sitting on a beach in Mexico, drink in hand, not thinking about hockey. Last thing from his mind. Right. I think he has been overthinking. He's been overplaying. He's just been not that he's some spectacular defensive player, but he just has not been great lately. And I think what he needs is to take this break and not think and just relax and come back to hockey and hope that you're rejuvenated.
I actually like Bertuzzo. And his faults are never from effort, because he plays hard, and he's commented recently and said that his entire career he's never had like a guaranteed regular spot in the lineup. He's always had to fight for his spot, because he's not really a top four guy. So he's always been that bottom pairing guy. So he's always been like, if something needs a shakeup or the defense is struggling, he's the guy that sits. So he doesn't want to do that. So he's always had to work really hard to try and stay in the lineup, and you can see that. But it's just maybe some of his mistakes are from trying too hard around the net, running into the goalie, knocking the goalie stick out of his hands. Effort-based mistakes, or it's hard to get mad at somebody for that kind of thing. We're just trying too hard, and you make a mistake doing that. But I think Wallman's a much more talented defenseman, but Is he as good defensively? I don't know. Bortuzzo is one of our best penalty killers too. So shot blockers, but so late in the third period, with Husso pulled for the extra attacker, O'Reilly was tripped coming into the zone. I think people were bitching about that big time online, and it's a blatant trip. I don't know how you don't call that. Not that made a difference in the game whatsoever. Blues are still down by 2. I mean, even if O'Reilly isn't tripped, there's no guarantee they score on that rush either. So, and could have lost 3-1 or what. But that's a terrible missed call.
Well, and especially with how there was some calls right before it too that were not nearly as blatant as that. You're going to make those little ticky-tack calls. You got to make that call there.
On the
rush,
rush,
not
too.
Just because the Blues are down.
It wasn't away from the play. It was right there.
It was right there.
I mean, you can't even say, well, it was away from the play. It didn't affect anything. I'm going to let it go. Couldn't even say that. Because it resulted in a turnover, and they scored a goal because of it. So
this is one of those moments where I want that paying, whatever, $100 a month for all access to all the mics that are available in an NHL game. Yeah. I would love to have heard that conversation between Craig Berube and what the hell was the idiot that was roughing that game?
I can see his face. I can't think of his name.
Right, where he's explaining why he didn't call it, and the whole time I'm like, where's that account that would put up the the funny bullshit quotes about what they're saying? We needed that at that point, because just terrible. How can you not make that call,
especially down 3-1? It's not like it's a tie game and you're as a referee you're trying to stay out of it. It's a 3-1 game. I mean, you call the penalty, the game probably still ends the same way. I mean, what do you got? I mean, call the fucking penalty.
Right. To me, Paul Stastny, when he scored that goal, was like a soccer player looking back to see if they were going to call it back for offsides. 5 minutes later, wait, you're going to let me score this goal? This is going to count.
It's a bad missed call when Tarasenko has his arms up in the air yelling at the referee. I mean, a guy who doesn't really do that unless he is pissed off about something. So, Winnipeg ended a 6-game losing streak in this game. Husso was 9-0-0 with a 1.5 GAA and a 9.51 save percentage in his past 10 starts at home. He was 6-0-0 in 7 games with a 1.11 GAA and a 9.65 save percentage in January prior to Saturday. The Blues lost for only the 3rd time in their past 17 home games, 14-2-1 over that stretch.
For perspective, those are Bill Day CBC numbers right there.
Pretty much.
Didn't get that many starts.
But so, I mean, so 14-2-1 in their last 17 home games, you're allowed a game like this. It just, I mean, you're not gonna. It's fine. It's not like they're 500 at home. I think it's an easy one to say, well, it was a shitty game. Address some things and move on. Don't get too worked up about it. Hopefully, because you're not going to win every game at home. You're just not going to. And the 14-2-1 last 17. It's hard to complain about losing a game even when you throw a stinker up like this. St. Louis outshot Winnipeg 29-24, lost the faceoff battle again, 46% to 54%. We were 1 for 5 on the power play. Winnipeg was 1 for 3. So, and we're off until next up for the Blues until February 10th, when New Jersey will be in town. And that is interesting. Coming out of the break, New Jersey, we have New Jersey, Chicago at home, and then on the road for Ottawa, Montreal. That is a 4-game stretch that you should win all 4, no question. No question.
The entire month of February is teams well in the bottom half of the league. It's a trap. If they come out and play to the level of the opposition, like they have the reputation of doing several years ago, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, and I think this is going to. I mean, February would determine when the trade deadline is. But February, I mean, if they don't play well in February when they should be, because they're playing against teams that they should be beating, that's going to weigh heavily into going to the trade deadline. So there's that too.
Bill mentioned it.
I was going to say, let's not forget Doug Armstrong's not the guy that waits for the trade deadline. He makes
That's
his
true.
moves early.
That's true.
That's true.
Because he'll say, I made my trade 3 weeks ago, right? So
I think the trade deadline's in March, is it not?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Coming out of February, the deadline's in March sometime. Yeah.
But let's not let. So Bill mentioned it here. So you mentioned the opponents: New Jersey, Chicago, Ottawa, Montreal. That's next 4. Toronto, okay, that's a tough game. It's a Saturday night in Toronto. But
tough.
outside of that, then you go to Philadelphia, then Buffalo, then Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
All bottom feeders. That closes out February. You have one truly tough team in February. I hate to say it. If you're a playoff team, you need to look at this and say, if we don't get anything outside of, 85% of the points in these games, it's a loss. You need to come in and dominate and win these games as a playoff team.
Yeah, 6 out of every 8 points, 7 out of every 8 points, something like that. You need to be getting 3 out of 4 wins, 4 out of 5 wins, something like that at least. I mean,
because you got a tough March coming up.
Points in the bank, right? Although this happens every year, but we say this is the month that makes or break this team, right? And the last 2 times, and in 2019, that happened. It was February. We had a shitty, tough schedule, and the Blues tore it up in February. And we're like, wow, that was amazing. And that just
they did that last year.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Every year, it's like there's 1 month in the second half. It's like this is the month. We have to play well.
I think it was we went into March, and it was they were not a playoff team at that point, and it was holy shit, they're not going to make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And then they went in and just barnstormed, and it was like, whoa, wait, this team can play hockey.
And they were the hottest team in the playoffs over the past 25 games or something like that. I don't know what it was.
Yep.
And then they got steamrolled.
We'll see. This will be an interesting month to see, but we'll probably have one more show, I think, before these games start, just a guess. But I expect some, they're going to be healthy. They're going to be rested. They got a long push coming here. They're just over the halfway mark of the season, and they got a lot of hockey in March and April. So expect a strong push here to start in February.
And to clarify, the trade deadline, March 21st.
Okay.
Very late this year.
Yeah, it is late.
Yeah.
Later than I thought.
You're right. It's usually been the last week of February, first week of March, because that's always time. I always have days that I have to take from the previous year. I will lose them. Yeah. So I'm always off during trade deadline, but not this year.
And it's also because they are, because of the Olympic break originally, they are playing well into April regular season. 29th is the last game of the season. So typically, your season ends early April. This year it's late April. So that does push it back, but it seems like it is even later than it should be, comparatively speaking.
Well, they did start late. So
yeah, that's true.
Rapid fire tidbits from around the NHL. Real quick.
Should we not have our next commercial break, sir?
Oh, do we have a commercial? Did I skip over that? Oh, I did because it was, I had the
it's
thing.
Not in the outline.
Well, it is in the outline.
Oh,
it's just in the, because of the interview, we changed things around. Gotcha. All right. Yeah, of course. We'd be remiss if we did not hear from our very good friends from Sunrise Brewery. Sunrise Brewery is St. Louis's only hockey-themed brewhouse. Stop on in during the next game to experience the ultimate hockey fan brewery while sampling various hockey-inspired beers, such as Old Arena Lager, the Beauty IPA, the Rotating Pale Ale Series, or seasonal offerings such as their Imperial Stout, their Lime Sherbet Sour, and much more. While you're there enjoying any number of their fantastic beverages, you can admire the bar top and tables made of authentic arena wood and the actual penalty box door from the old barn. Located at 3126 Olive Street in Midtown St. Louis, it's one of the best places to watch a Blues game, or any game. Visit CenterIceBrewery.com today to schedule a no-contact curbside pickup or make a reservation in the tap room. Center Ice Brewery. Let's go Blues. Please drink responsibly. It wouldn't be a show without a word from Center Ice Brewery.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Jeff.
Of course.
So the Avalanche went for 19 straight on home ice tonight, and they lost. What a shame. You hate to see it.
You hate to see it.
Lost in a shootout to Arizona, 3-2, I believe.
Yeah, 3-2 is right.
Yeah. I think I put in the show notes. I wonder what's going to happen against Arizona. Gee, I wonder. New Vegas skills competition events for these All-Star weekend this weekend. The skills competition is on Friday. The All-Star game is on Saturday. So 6:30 p.m. Central on Friday, ESPN. Players will be shooting at playing cards to try and hit 21, so blackjack, and some target shooting event on a boat at the Bellagio and the fountains. So I have a question about the blackjack thing. So Vegas can't name their team the Aces because that makes people think of gambling, right? But they can literally play blackjack during the skills competition in Vegas on the ice.
Yeah,
That's okay.
if
That's
it
okay.
were right, if it were 2 years later that Vegas joined, they'd be the Aces. The entire gambling landscape has completely changed.
Yeah, they're embracing gambling full board.
Yeah, I think I'm one of 5 American males over the age of 40 that doesn't have a Betway or DraftKings account at this point.
I do not either. But I'm also not that age.
I do have. I don't bet. I hardly ever bet on sports, but except the most I've ever bet in my life was in the Stanley Cup final. We talked about, and I bet on the Blues like 4 times and won 3. It was, I won a nice chunk of money. Anyway, the breakaway challenge returns for the first time since 2016. This was the one where the players do goofy stuff and they're judged.
I'm not a fan of it.
I am not either.
I was very happy to see it disappear.
What are we doing with this stuff?
It's the Trevor Zegras show. That's why they bring it back.
Maybe.
Because he's participating. He's not truly an all-star, but they're bringing him in just for this.
That's weird.
Right. Yeah. Pulling off the Michigan against Montreal.
This event got stupid real quick. Kane doing the Superman thing.
It's the dunk contest for hockey.
But
which
they're dressing up in costumes. Right. If it was just,
it works in basketball.
If it was just, like shootout moves, like cool shootout moves, I'd be cool with that. Doing but dressing up in costumes and coming down and holding up signs, and that's weird. I don't know. Kids might love that kind of thing. I don't know. I'd imagine the older crowd's like, what the hell are they doing out there?
No, I think every one of us that's over the age of 17 is probably like, what the fuck is this? This is pointless.
Yeah.
Well, and they used to have like a rating system. They had like judges, and
they're still going to rate apparently.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
knock it off.
You're gonna have to appeal to the judges. It's gonna be weird. It's gonna be dumb.
Stupid.
It's gonna be stupid. It's gonna be dumb. Yeah, and we're old farts, right?
That's right.
And the All-Star game is on Saturday, February 5th, 2 p.m. Kyrou representing the Blues. You guys gonna watch? People are like hit and miss with the All-Star game,
See, when it was here in St. Louis, I paid very close attention just because it was here. Other than that, I typically, I'll have it on, but I'm always doing something else. I'll have my laptop on my lap. I'll be playing a game with my son, conversation with the wife. I'm not really truly paying attention.
They're not doing the divisions, are they? For the teams?
No, they are.
They are? I thought they were just doing. Yeah. Okay, good. Because I like that. I like that format. The short games. I think it's far better than one regular long game. I like that a lot.
Makes it a little more interesting, but it also takes it away from the actual game, that it's a 3-on-3 tournament the entire time.
Yeah.
Make it 4-on-4. Bring more people there. Maybe players. Maybe the calculus is that they were having a hard time getting the Stars to even show up a couple years ago. that, they kind of want to limit the number of players that they're bringing in, but make it 4-on-4 instead of 3-on-3, and then 3-on-3 for overtime if you need it.
Matt Harris in the YouTube chat
I'd
says,
say
I actually need to check into sport betting just for little bits of fun money. Yeah, I mean it's kind of a neat thing to play around with once in a while.
I keep telling the wife, like, we always do like game predictions. Like if we watch the Blues game, or if there's we watched the Chiefs game the other night, and the other game, the Rams game, unfortunately, and yeah, so I always do like score predictions, right before the game starts. What do you think the score is going to be? I'm always like super fucking close, and I usually pick the winner. And I always say, I need to start fucking betting. I need to start doing it. Just do it. But I know the minute I start betting, I'm going to start getting it all wrong.
Bet on what you know. That's what I did in the Cup final. I'm like, I bet on what I knew, and I was confident. And the one time I bet for the Blues to win, it was in Game 4. I think the Blues won. I bet for them to win by 2, and they won by 2. So I hit like an extra thing on the bet. So that was like, that's extra money. It's cool. It's exciting. I mean, it's probably like nerve-wracking if you bet a lot of money, which I would never do because that would stress me out. But $10 here, $20 there. It's fun. Winter Olympics start Friday as well, which is it's kind of a weird thing, day to have the skills competition and All-Star weekend, the weekend of the Olympics starting, but okay. But it says, okay, so if you look up when the Winter Olympics start, it says Friday, February 4th. That's a lie. The Olympics start on Thursday because there's games going on Thursday. Women's ice hockey starts Thursday. I think 7:10.
They do this every year.
Yeah,
it's so weird.
It's every year, and they say they do it because, well, you get some of these tournaments and things. You got players need rest between games and events, so they have to start before the Olympics start, so they can finish everything before the closing ceremonies. I'm like, just schedule the fucking closing ceremonies after the event's over, and start everything after the opening ceremony. I don't understand why
they have a weird time thing every year where they're like, well, these opening ceremonies need to be exactly this amount of time before the closing ceremonies.
Why?
Get rid of that.
Yeah.
What's the fucking point?
Extend it by a few days. And
yeah.
I mean, everyone, most people like the Olympics. I do. I mean, everybody does, but I like them. And people I think they probably get good ratings, I guess. That's why it's always on TV everywhere. But yeah, just extend it by a few days and get everything in between the ceremonies. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
They actually stopped. I think they want to stop calling them the opening ceremonies and just refer to the ceremony as a ceremony to celebrate the Olympics, not to open the Olympics, because there are events that go on before. And some athletes can't even participate in the ceremony because they're doing events during the ceremony.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I think that happened to the U.S. Women's team. I think it was 2 Olympics ago. They couldn't even participate in the opening ceremony because they had a game.
Yeah, that's
I was like, come on, that's part of the thrill for these athletes is being there for the opening ceremony.
They said that I was talking to Jeff, who's a ultra marathoner, crazy trainer guy, but he was saying that some athletes won't walk in the opening ceremony because of the sport they participate in. Apparently, some elite runners, they can't be standing around that long. In prep, if they're going to be running in a day or two, they're very meticulous on how they're treating their body, and they don't want to be standing around for hours and then walk around, and apparently it's not good for them. I don't know. Weird.
Yeah. I just, on the Olympics, I think it's just going to be so difficult to know that unless you've got it on in the morning, it's not live, and that's I want to watch the U.S. versus the Canadian women live, right? I don't want to watch that. Curling, yeah, maybe I'll tune in for that, recorded, whatever. But
I think
the big hockey games, and let's be honest, not to take anything away from it, the Olympics used to be, all amateurs, right? And now it's, now we've been spoiled with NHLers there for a few Olympics. I'm much more excited about the women's tournament, and frankly, to see if anybody can upset the Canadians or the US, but then to see the Canadians in the US and playing for a medal is always like that's got to be the most exciting game. And that what's her name, Marie-Philippe Poulin's going to score in triple overtime. That's just 3 weeks from now that's going to happen, and we just have to accept it.
The men's ice hockey starts on Wednesday the 9th, and Team USA plays China on the 10th at 7:10. I think that's AM.
Yes, it's AM.
And game of note: Team USA men play Team Canada February 12th at 10:10. I guess that's AM, PM.
I think PM's correct.
PM. Okay, 10:10 PM.
Yeah.
So I mean, even though Team USA and Team Canada not what a lot of us expected them to be a couple months ago, it's still USA versus Canada. So
there's going to be some of the best prospects coming up that we're going to see in those games. So that should be interesting. And like Bill said, I've really gotten into the women's tournament, even when the NHL was still sending players. I've gotten into that the last couple of years. I think we talked about it on the show when Team USA won in overtime last Olympic.
Yeah, that was great.
It was at like 1 a.m. our time.
Yep.
And I fucking lost my mind. I was jumping around the room going crazy. Woke up my son, woke up my wife, and because it was like a Thursday night or something. And so I love it. Great hockey to watch, and always a nice rivalry.
One on the deke of her life. That was a fantastic deke.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I love it. I'm gonna be watching. I'll have it on all the time. It'll be on the background. My TV's.
I will be waking up early to come down and work before I get my son on the bus, which I typically don't do. I get him on the bus. He gets on about 8:20. I come down and work starting about 8:30. Work through the day. During the Olympics, I will be coming down at 7 a.m. And that way I can turn on the early game, catch a little of that before I have to get him ready for the bus and come back down and work. So, I do work my schedule around being able to watch some of the Olympic hockey.
Yep. And with all the streaming on nowadays, on days that I go into work, I'll have it on in the background, streaming, watching stuff. Oh, man, long show. Good show. Solid show today. Thanks to Kevin Woodley for coming on. You guys have anything else you want to add? We'll close it up.
I got nothing except, Kevin was one of my favorite guests we've had in a long time. So that was fun.
The knowledge and the insight, I should say, are both. They brought it's stuff that that we said when he was here that kind of just. I don't want to sound cocky about it or uppity, but it is his numbers and his stats and his insight just kind of backed up what we've been saying, what many have been saying. I think it's the vocal minority that's upset about, the goaltending, complaining. Has to be. But it kind of validified, their stance, our stance on goaltending the way it is right now and what should happen with it. So we'll see how it goes. Support for Let's Go Blues Radio is brought to you in part by ID Life, the world's only truly personalized vitamin platform based on a health assessment of your DNA. Visit rockinthatidlife.com for more information. That's rockinthatidlife.com and get 10% off by emailing Dustin at rockinthatidlife.com and tell him Let's Go Blues Radio sent you. And by Center Ice Brewery, St. Louis's hockey-themed brewery. Visit centericebrewery.com today to schedule a no-contact curbside pickup or to make a reservation in their tap room located at 3126 Olive Street in Midtown St. Louis. It's one of the best places to watch a Blues game. That's centericebrewery.com. Please drink responsibly. That'll wrap up episode 21 of season 10 of the original St. Louis Blues Hockey Podcast, Let's Go Blues Radio. Thanks for listening, and thanks to those who participated in the YouTube and Facebook live chats during the live show. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we've been bringing it to you. For Jeff Ponder and Bill Day, I'm Kurt Price. Thank you again, Kevin Woodley, for joining the show. It was fantastic. Until next time, everyone. Let's go Rams. No, what the? I was gonna say let's go. I had him at the last at the last second. At the last second, I said, "Oh, I'm gonna say beat LA," and I said, "Let's go Rams." I'm like, "What?" That sounded so dirty coming out of my mouth. I could wash my mouth out with soap. That was awful. That felt.
You can't be a part of this show anymore.
That felt bad saying that. When it came out of my mouth, I literally felt sick. That was awful.
Kevin Woodley is now the new host of Let's Go Blues Radio.
Kurt Price has been sent down to Blues Fan Report.
Oh, yeah. No, I refuse. I refuse the assignment.
Oh, God, I'm so disappointed with you. I've never been this mad at you.
It was a slip of the tongue. I was going to say beat LA, so let's start all over. For Jeff Ponder and Bill Dam, Kurt Price. Until next time, everyone. No, I already said that because I thanked Kevin Woodley, so I'll scratch that out later in the podcast. Let's go Blues. Beat LA.
Let's go Bengals.
Let's go Bengals. Kurt Price does not speak for me. And let's go Blues.
Don't look at me.
The Chiefs are at home tonight against Sport at the War Memorial at 8. Good seats are still available. I think that went very well.
Thank you for listening to Let's Go Blues Radio. Now take off, hosers.
I want you to have a heart attack and die so that we never have to do this shit again.
Well, there's 90 minutes of your life you'll never get back. Sorry.
St. Louis Blues, St. Louis Blues. Have you heard the news about our St. Louis Blues? They've only just begun, they're on their way to #1. Now there's no more blues for